Hi guys, welcome to this quick little video. Today I'll be explaining question 2 in the Spring 2013 final. So before I start explaining the actual question in the test, I found this little picture that explains the different operators and how you read it, if you read it from left to right or right to left, and I thought it would be really cool to include here. I know that looking at pictures like this helped me a lot when I was prepping for the exams. So there are 6 different types of Java operators: arithmetic operators, relational operators, bitwise operators, logical operators, assignment operators, and miscellaneous operators. Even though the question that we'll be going over later on this video only talks about assignment operators, we will be revising all of them before we start. So arithmetic operators in Java are very similar to arithmetic operators in math. They subtract right-hand operands from left-hand operands and multiply values on either side of the operator. They divide left-hand operands by right-hand operands and divide left-hand operands by right-hand operands and returns the remainder. So it's the operators that we know and love from math class: the plus and minus sign, the equal sign, the division sign, and the multiplication sign. And what makes these operators more tricky in the long run is learning the order that they operate in. So in the long run, we do have to take into consideration PAMDAs, because Java does operate in a certain way, and if you don't use your parentheses correctly, these arithmetic operators will mess up your equation. So you'll have to pay attention to your PAMDAs and to your parentheses when you start writing long equations in your code. The next one is the rational operators, and rational operators are the equal to. So when you're writing a, let's say, if statement, for example, you don't use just the equal sign, you do use the equal sign if you're saying that something is true or something is false. And and then there's the not equal to, the greater than, the less than, the greater than or equal to, and the less than or equal to. And all of these will be used a lot when you're writing loops and if statements and for statements. So we've used them a lot in arrays, and they're very important in the long run too. The bitwise operators are used to perform manipulation of individual bits of a number. They can be used with any of the integral types, which means the integers, the doubles, the characters, etc. And they're used when performing update and query operations of binary indexed trees. So like the or and the and, we use those a lot when we're writing if statements, for example. So the logical operator is very similar to the Boolean operator that I talked about before, and they return results based on the Boolean that was evaluated before the operator is applied. So for example, if you use a and, they'll evaluate the A. So like if you say A and B, it will evaluate the A and then it will evaluate the B. If the A is true and the B is true, it will return true. But if the A is true and the B is not, then it will return false. Last but not least is the assignment operator, and the assignment operator is the one we'll be focusing on for the question that I'll be evaluating in this video. And what they basically do is assign values to a variable. Today we'll be learning about Java operators. As you can see in question 2 of the final that I have right here in the screen, that's what you're being tested on in this question. You have to say what is going to come out of this code, and the way that you know what the code is going to print out is by evaluating the operators. So a Java operator is a function that performs a function in a variable and converts it to a single variable. it has a precedence and an associative. So for question number 1, we can see that the operator that can be found is the minus minus, and what the minus minus means is that it's decrementing by 1, so it's going to be the initial set value of x minus 1. So in this case, it would be 5 minus 1, and then since they're both integers, it'll just be 5 minus 1, that is 4, divided by 2, which would be 2. And that's the answer that you can see right there. Snippet 2 is a little tricky because they change it from a double into an integer, which means that when 6.4 is divided by 2, the answer will be rounded to a whole number. So instead of being 3.2, it's going to round down to 3 so that it's an integer. It's in the integer format and not in a double format. Integers don't have decimal points. Snippet number 3 is a different operator that we haven't seen yet in this question, and it uses a minus equal, which means that the value set of y is equal to y minus that value in the right. So it's going to be 5.5 minus 4, which would be equal to 1.5. And then you'd use that value of 1.5 in the next line, and 1.5 times 2 would be equal to 3.0. And since it's still a double, it will have that 0.0. That's very important because since it's a double, it has to have the 0.0. So next is snippet number 4, and snippet number 4 might be a little tricky. It's a little subtle thing, and if you don't pay close attention, you might miss it, which is the fact that integer z, is a 1.5, which means it's not an integer, it's a double, and it was declared as an integer, which will cause a compiling error since it is incompatible because it had to be declared as a double. They declared an integer and they gave you a double, so that means it's incompatible, and it will fail to compile this code. You can't compile it, and that's why you get a C, which means compiling error. And then the last part of this question is snippet 5, and the issue with snippet 5 is the fact that x is given as a final integer, so 6 is the final integer value of x, and because you used final integer to declare this variable, you can't change the value later on, and that's what they tried to do in this code, so it gives you a compiling error. So even though Java operators aren't something extremely hard to learn, they're very important because it's something that we'll continue to use as we learn how to code new things. I've used them in for loops, I've used them in arrays, I've used them in all my codes because they make writing code so much easier and they make your code so much smaller. So they're very important to understand, and it's good to have a good understanding of them. Thank you so much for watching my video.